Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series by Five Senses Tours. Today we're doing a deep dive into one of India's most uh, debated and really captivating structures, the Ram Setu. You might also know it as Adam's Bridge.
Mhm.
This isn't just, a line on a map. It's this legendary formation sitting right at the crossroads of ancient myth and modern science. So our mission today is to explore this remarkable feature stretching across the Palk Strait. Is it a natural geological marvel, or does it maybe bear the mark of some ancient, colossal, human, or maybe even divine engineering?
It's an absolutely fascinating subject, and geographically, well, it's quite distinct, isn't it? The Ram Setu is essentially this chain of natural limestone shoals. It connects Pamban Island, that's Ramaswaram Island, off India's southeastern coast, all the way to Mannar Island off Sri Lanka's northwestern coast. We're talking about 48 kilometers, roughly 30 miles. And it's important because it separates the Gulf of Mannar from the Palk Strait. What really adds to the mystery, I think, is how shallow the water is over it, usually just 1 to 3 meters deep. That made navigation historically incredibly challenging.
Right, beyond those geographical facts, though, what really grabs people, what's shaped beliefs for thousands of years, are the stories, the incredible stories. Where do we start with those? The most profound account.
Well, that has to be the ancient Sanskrit epic, the Ramayana, no doubt about it. It tells the story of Lord Rama's desperate mission, to rescue his wife, Sita. She'd been abducted by the demon king Ravana, who ruled Lanka, often identified as modern Sri Lanka. And the ocean, this vast ocean, was this huge, seemingly impossible barrier. So Lord Rama, with his devoted army, the Vanara army, often called monkeys or forest dwellers, they took on this monumental task, building a bridge right across the sea. And the legend says this incredible feat was led by divine architects Nala and Nila. They're described as sons of Vishwakarma, the celestial architect himself. That's actually why the bridge is sometimes called Nala Setu.
Wow, that sounds like an absolutely impossible task.
Yes.
So how do the legends explain how they did it? Especially the idea of floating stones. That's the part that really gets people thinking, right?
Exactly. The floating stones legend is particularly captivating. There are really two main versions you hear. One says Nala and Nila had this special boon, this gift, that meant any stone they touched and put in water would just float. The other, perhaps more widely known belief, is that the Vanara army inscribed Lord Rama's sacred name onto each stone, and that holy inscription made them unsinkable. It really gives the structure this powerful spiritual layer, you see. And the importance of Ram Setu, it goes way beyond just the Ramayana. It gets reinforced in other ancient Hindu texts too, the Vishnu Purana, Brahmanda Purana, Agni Purana. These texts really solidify its deep historical and spiritual importance. It becomes a sacred symbol, a major pilgrimage site for millions. What's also interesting is the cross-cultural aspect. There's an Islamic legend attributing the bridge to Adam. He's said to have used it to cross over to Sri Lanka to reach Adam's Peak, and that's where the name Adam's Bridge comes from. So the bigger picture here is just how deeply embedded this structure is in multiple cultural stories. Any scientific explanation has to kind of grapple with these thousands of years of belief.
It's clear how powerful those stories are. But, okay, let's shift gears. What does science tell us about this formation? Does it offer a different picture?
From a scientific perspective, yes, it offers a different framework. Ram Setu is primarily seen as a chain of natural limestone shoals. These are mixed with sandbanks and coral formations. Structurally, you've got these parallel ledges, sandstone conglomerates. They're hard near the surface but get coarser, softer as you go deeper. And like we said, the water around it is incredibly shallow. Usually 1 to 3 meters, though you do see variations, maybe 3 to 30 feet in places. Now, the main scientific theories for how it formed point to this complex mix of long-term geological stuff. One big factor is tectonic movement. There's geological evidence suggesting Sri Lanka was actually part of the Indian landmass way back, breaking away maybe 125,000 years ago. You can see signs of this, like calcareous rectangular blocks in the area, rocks rich in calcium carbonate, kind of hinting at that ancient split. Another key part is how strong tidal currents and constant sediment buildup worked over thousands of years. That's how these shoals likely formed. What's really fascinating, scientifically speaking, is the role of patch reefs. They're common there, and they can totally change how water flows. They act like natural barriers, trapping sediment, leading to sand aprons and other features. So the key scientific insight is that this complex, dynamic interplay of purely natural forces could explain such a unique geological wonder.
That sounds like a really dynamic environment, always changing. How much would something like ancient sea level changes have affected what we see there today?
Oh, hugely. That's a critical piece of the puzzle, absolutely. Think about the last glacial period that's roughly 115,000 to 11,700 years ago. Global sea levels were drastically lower then, like up to 120 meters lower than today. That huge drop actually exposed the entire Palk Strait. It was dry land. India and Sri Lanka were connected. Then, as the planet warmed up, sea levels rose during the Holocene epoch. By about 7,000 years ago, they reached roughly present levels, and the strait, including Adam's Bridge, got submerged again. And there are these interesting historical accounts, right, suggesting it was possibly passable on foot even until the 15th century. Then supposedly a big cyclone submerged parts of it. It really shows how it's been interacting with natural forces for ages.
Right. And I remember, like many people probably do, those NASA satellite images from 2002. They seem to show this very clear linear structure. How did those images play into the scientific view and maybe the public debate too?
Ah, yes, the NASA images. They definitely caught the public eye because, well, they did show this remarkably straight pattern of shoals. However, NASA itself was quite clear. They stated these were natural formations, results of sedimentation, coral growth over time. And they specifically said that satellite photos like that can't tell you the age, what's underneath, the geological structure, or whether humans were involved. You just can't tell that from space. But here's where it gets interesting. The visual, even with the scientific explanation, was often seen through the lens of existing beliefs. So this dual interpretation, it didn't really settle anything. If anything, it kind of fueled this feedback loop, making the mystery of its origin even more potent and captivating for many people.
And what about the floating stones? That's so central to the legend. Does science have any explanation for stones that might float?
It does, actually, up to a point. There are stones found near Rameshwaram that do float, and science offers a couple of main reasons why. One is pumice. That's volcanic rock formed when lava cools super fast, trapping gas bubbles inside. This makes it way less dense than water, about 0.25 grams per cubic centimeter, while water is 1. So it floats. The other possibility is porous pipe corals. They're very common in the Gulf of Mannar. They're naturally light and buoyant because they have trapped air inside their structure. However, and this is important, there are also these reports, and even examples in temples like Rajakariyaman, of denser black stones that apparently float inexplicably. These definitely add to the puzzle. They challenge the standard geological explanations and, keep that element of mystery alive.
Okay, so we have the science suggesting natural processes, the mythology pointing to something else entirely. When you put those side by side, what does it mean for this whole debate? Because the scientific view clearly faces strong counterarguments.
That's exactly it. That's the core of the ongoing discussion. Even with compelling scientific arguments for a natural origin, there's this strong body of belief and even some scientific interpretations arguing for human or divine intervention. A key point for the man-made argument is that striking linear alignment. Yes, NASA says it's natural, but proponents argue, well, is it really plausible for nature alone to create something so straight over 48 kilometers? They see it as pointing towards intelligent design or ancient engineering. Some even point to the Ramayana itself, which describes the bridge having a precise 10.1 length to width ratio and claim that matches the current structure. Then there's the evidence from the structure's layers. Core sampling studies, notably one by a former Geological Survey of India director, S. Badrinarayan, suggested something interesting. While the base underneath is very old, the upper layer, made of coral and boulders, seems to have been, in his words, artificially placed. Other geological studies mention finding loose marine sand below the coral layer. The conclusion drawn was that the coral boulders weren't naturally formed there, but were transported by somebody and dumped there. So the key insight here is this layering. It's seen as crucial evidence suggesting ancient builders perhaps worked on top of an existing natural sandbar or shoal formation. Some even try to link the methods described in the Ramayana to sophisticated ancient engineering ideas, like understanding pore pressure, basically how water and soil affect stability, which would be vital for building on soft ground.
And the age. The age of the structure itself seems to really tie into those ancient stories, doesn't it? That seems to be a big part of the argument.
It absolutely is. The dating presents these intriguing overlaps that fuel the man-made theory. Radiocarbon dating of sand and coral samples from the area suggests the formation could be between 7,000 and 10,000 years old. Now, that timeline lines up intriguingly with the Treta Yuga, the era traditionally associated with the Ramayana. Now, other studies focusing on corals that grew on the bridge structure itself suggest a younger age, maybe around 3,500 years old. But that could just mean recent coral growth on an older foundation, or maybe later human activity. If we step back and look at the bigger picture, this idea of epistemic plurality becomes really relevant. It's this concept that different ways of knowing science, myth, history can all coexist and contribute to our understanding. It allows the mystery to continue and invites you, the listener, to contemplate it personally.
So we've got the scientific data, the ancient texts, these historical accounts. What about ongoing research? And how are official bodies like the government or archaeological surveys looking at this debate now? Is their stance changing?
Good question. Yes, those historical accounts, like the Rameshwaram temple records suggesting it was walkable until a 15th century cyclone, do imply a more solid structure existed fairly recently. This is why ongoing research is so important, and why official stances seem to be evolving. For instance, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, and the National Institute of Oceanography, NIO, in Goa, they're currently running an underwater exploration project right now, using research ships, collecting sediment samples, even looking for signs of submerged settlements. And the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, well, their position has shifted over time. They initially filed an affidavit in court back in 2007 rejecting the mythological claims, but that was later withdrawn. More recently, you had comments like from that former GSI director in 2008 suggesting evidence of significant construction by humans. And the ASI has since approved further underwater research, so it indicates perhaps a move towards more investigation, acknowledging the complexity.
This really isn't just some ancient mystery then, is it? It has very real, very modern consequences, especially thinking about that big Setu shipping canal project.
Exactly. That project brings it right into the present day. It's a multi-million-dollar plan, actually first proposed way back in the 1860s, but finalized by the Indian government in 2005. The idea was simple economics. Create a shipping channel right through the shallow Palk Strait. Ships going to India's east coast could then cut straight through, avoiding the trip around Sri Lanka. That would save, estimates said, about 350 nautical miles, maybe 10 to 30 hours of sailing time. Big potential boost for industry, economy, tourism in the region.
But as often happens with big projects like this, it got tangled up in some serious controversy pretty quickly, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It really highlighted this fundamental clash, economic development versus heritage preservation, and a very sacred heritage at that. For millions of Hindus, Ram Setu isn't just rocks and sand. It's sacred, believed to be built by Lord Rama. So the idea of dredging it, tampering with it, was seen as sacrilegious. This led to huge protests, numerous court cases, including public interest litigations going all the way to the Supreme Court. And then there were the environmental worries. Scientists warned about major disruption to marine life in the Gulf of Minaro. It's a biodiversity hotspot full of coral reefs, fish, lobsters, crabs. People also worried about tsunami vulnerability. There's a belief, or perhaps observation, that the Setu offered some protection during the 2004 tsunami. Dredging it might remove that buffer, plus concerns about dumping the dredged material, pollution from ships. There were also doubts about whether it even made economic sense. Could the canal handle really big modern ships? It was designed only for ships up to 30,000 tons, and the overall cost versus benefit was questioned. It's interesting, even colonial-era surveyors apparently advised against dredging there because the sand shifts so much and the reef formations are so complex.
So with all that opposition, religious, environmental, economic, what happened to the project? Where does it stand now?
Well, the project was essentially put on hold by a Supreme Court judgment back in 2013. The religious sensitivities were a major factor, although the central government did state later, in 2018, that the Ram Setu structure itself wouldn't be harmed by the project if it went ahead in some form. The whole thing remains very contentious. And meanwhile, there are these ongoing calls to declare Ram Setu a National Heritage Monument. That really underlines its significance beyond just geology or shipping lanes. It really poses that crucial question for any society, doesn't it? How do you balance progress with cultural and natural heritage, especially when it's so deeply felt? What's fascinating is how the very ambiguity, the mystery of its origin, actually became a powerful argument for its preservation. Whether you see it as potentially man-made and sacred, or as a unique natural wonder worth protecting, that uncertainty mobilized a very diverse range of groups against its destruction. The mystery itself became its shield, in a way.
For those of you listening who feel drawn to this whole enigma, Rameshwaram really is the place to experience it firsthand. It offers such a direct connection to this ancient puzzle.
Absolutely. Rameshwaram is just captivating. It's famous for its deep spiritual importance, of course, but also just stunning natural beauty. And everything there feels intertwined with the Ramayana story and the bridge itself. It's a very holistic experience.
And there are so many amazing sites right there in Rameshwaram that link directly to the Ram Setu story. You can almost feel like you're walking in the footsteps of the epic.
You really can. At the heart of it all is the Ramanatha Swami temple. It's incredibly revered, one of the 12 Jyotirlinga shrines. Legend says Lord Rama worshipped Shiva right there, seeking blessings before building the bridge. And the temple itself. just breathtaking, amazing Dravidian architecture, and it has the longest pillared corridor of any Hindu temple in India. Then you have Dhanushkodi, that's the very southern tip of Paman Island. From there, you get a clear view towards where the Ram Setu starts. It's a ghost town now, sadly hit by a cyclone in 1964, but it's also where Vishana is said to have surrendered to Lord Rama. Nearby is Agni Tirtham, a sacred beach. Devotees take ritual dips there, believing it's where Rama prayed for atonement. And the Panchmukhi Hanuman temple is known for this grand idol of Lord Hanuman, who was key in building the bridge, of course, and they actually have some of those mysterious floating stones preserved there, a real tangible link to the legend. For views, you should head to Gandhamadana Parvatham. It's the highest point on the island. They say Lord Rama stood there searching for Sita and left his footprints. You get these amazing panoramic views of the island, and you can see the distant outline of the Setu. Really gives you a sense of scale. And let's not forget the Pamban Bridge itself, the 2-kilometer bridge connecting the island to the mainland. It's an engineering marvel in its own right, and it's literally your gateway to Rameshwaram and the Ram Setu mystery. So for visitors, you can see the Ram Setu from different points along the coast. There are also boat rides you can take for a closer look. It's usually a peaceful trip, great for photos, quiet reflection. You can't walk on the submerged parts, obviously, but the boats get you close to the visible shoals. The best time to visit Rameshwaram is probably between October and March. The weather is generally pleasant then. And honestly, the fact that Ram Setu remains this unsolved mystery is probably its biggest draw for visitors. That ambiguity invites you to think, to explore, to form your own interpretation.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? Ram Setu really stands as this incredible testament to India's rich blend of belief, history, and natural wonder. It's truly unique, a geocultural heritage site embodying both Earth's history and humanity's deepest spiritual stories.
It really is a place that prompts contemplation, doesn't it? Thinking about that intricate dance between nature, history, and faith. What can Ram Setu teach us about how belief and science interact, and how both, maybe in different ways, contribute to why we value and protect certain places? It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about, how different kinds of knowledge shape how we see the world around us.
If you decide to travel to Rameshwaram or any other part of India, we have a recommendation. Five Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact at fivesensestours.com. Note 5 is written as a numeral in contact at fivesensestours.com. Or WhatsApp to +919-845-677-446.